Hello everyone and welcome to Ginger Prime. My name is Brian if you're new around here, but if you're a returning subscriber, welcome back, you magnificent beast. That's what you get for subscribing, by the way. Free compliments at the start of these videos. Now in today's guide, I'm going to walk you through the Summoner Controller Guide. This is the 1 through 90 guide. We're going to go through our skills, we're going to go through how to play with the controller and how to set it up, the HUD layout, my macros, and so much more. Now, typically, because I post a lot about different MMORPGs here on the channel, you might not be able to find this guide. So honestly, one of the things that I'm going to ask you to do, if you find anything enjoyable about this, hit that like button, and YouTube is sure to help show you any of my other controller guides here on the platform. It's really up to you, but ultimately, I end up getting asked more than anything else, hey, where's your X guide? And honestly, I say, well, it's already done. Here you go. Here's the link. But first and foremost, if you're still looking for more controller guides, you can check out the controller guide playlist for Endwalker that is on this channel. Link is in the description for you as well. And also, if I haven't yet gotten to your job that you're looking for, you can always use the Shadowbringers guide to kind of get you started and get you set up. There's a few exceptions, Summoner being one of them, because they got a full rework in Endwalker. But outside of that, it pretty much is a good getting started spot while you wait for the newest guide to roll out. Finally, as kind of a last note, in the pinned comments of this video, you will see a link to the Summoner macros. All of the skills in my entire layout can be set by actually using those macros. So instead of having to pause the video and try to figure out how I've got everything laid out and how it matches to you, you can just copy and paste the macro itself and execute it, and it's going to save you all kinds of time and frustration. And since this video is going to cover a lot of different points on the Summoner, if you find that there's anything you don't specifically need, feel free to use the chapters in the YouTube playlist to be able to jump to any particular section that you find most interesting and useful. But let's go ahead and get started and set up your game and get ready for controller play. You'll find this under your start and system character configuration menu. If you're not currently using a controller, you're still going to be able to hit the main menu and select system and character configuration to get into this screen. Now over here on the left hand side, you're going to see a wonderful little toggle of the controller and mouse and keyboard. These are actually two completely different settings that you will have access to when playing. This is essentially going to be your toggle. If you want to change between the two, you're going to have that ability. For example, though, if I switch in mouse and keyboard mode, note that I can actually still use my controller to run around. It's just going to use my layout and my settings for that system. So if you're wondering where the system menu is, it's right here with the XIV and character configuration, or your K key to make that an easy jump. Now, personally speaking, feel free to dive into my complete controller guide. That's also here on the channel. That's going to help go through each and every one of these features. But note that I like to use legacy type camera based movement. That's my personal preference. And from a targeting and filters perspective, I want you to focus in on filters from making your life easier. As a summoner, especially when your weapon is drawn, you want to be doing damage to your enemies, and your party members can always be selected by using the up and down on the D-pad. So just note that I've got my custom settings and I've got my enemy settings here. It's not as important because this is going to be something personal preference to you, but whenever my weapon is up, no matter what, I do not want to engage party members via left and right on my D-pad. I want to just use up and down. And so for example, to highlight this, if you guys have never seen, let me bring out my Chocobo companion to form myself a little party. And if I press up and down, I will cycle between the two of us. And if I press left and right, I will cycle between the dummies in this case. So note that that is something that you have full control over. And if I have my weapon out, then it becomes even more selecting if there's more objects to select from. But I can still target my party members even with my weapons out. I just use the D-pad to cycle through the list up and down. Now, as we continue on our setup, I have display recast timers turned on. I have hide unassigned slots turned on, which if I turn it off, you'll see lots of little floating things, and we'll talk about all these little floating bars here in a second. I have turned off display hotbar numbers. I have enabled hotbar cycling button, include pep bar when cycling, and enable drag and drop repositioning, all turned on. I have a couple different hotbars that are turned on. You might not see them all at the same time, but this is going to be more about the HUD layout setup when we get into that here in a little bit. Under sharing, for hotbars 1 through 5, they're all specific to the job or class that you're on. 6 through 10 are shared. Cross hotbar 1 through 6 are specific to the job you're on. and 7 and 8 are shared. That hasn't really changed for me over the years, but that's something that I could always be more willing to revisit in the future. Now, under the cross, I have in the enable cross hotbar and always displayed. If you actually want to clean up your UI a little bit, you can turn it off, and then it will only pop up when you hold the left and right trigger. That is completely up to you. I also have turned off display hotbar help, but if you've never seen this option and you hold down the trigger with it on, you'll see the names, the spells, and the abilities. So note that I have that turned off, because when you played the job enough, you'll eventually kind of get that muscle memory that you need. Now, overall, jumping down a little bit further, I play in hold mode. If you're learning or you're struggling with some like hand dexterity with the controller, you can always try toggle or mix mode. You will lose that on some features like the expanded cross hotbar by holding down the right trigger and the left trigger accordingly, but note that that's going to give you some options to play around with. I also have it set up to D-pad and action buttons, and D-pad and action buttons is my setup and layout. And then finally, on my double cross hotbar display settings, I have always display the W cross hotbar, which is right here. That's a double tap of the left trigger and the right trigger. I have returned to the cross hotbar after W cross hotbar input. So if I summon Carbuncle, I'm automatically now right in line and ready to rock and roll into my, without having to hit another button. And then finally, I set, you can set it to position W cross hotbar separately from the main cross hotbar if you so wish. It is entirely up to you. If you're struggling with the double tap of the right trigger and left trigger, you can always use double cross hotbar input listed right here and adjust that to find something that is a little bit more comfortable for your play style. Finally, under custom, I have displayed the left trigger and right trigger with cross hotbar 2 left and right. You'll notice these are exactly the same here for the summoner, and that's on purpose, but note that that's essentially something you can choose to do, and that's going to vary because 2 left and 2 right are job specific, so no matter what, each job is going to have their own. And then the W cross hotbar is using the directional inputs. If you actually turn that off, you'll only have 4 extra abilities. It's really up to you. And then you have cross hotbar 3 left and 3 right. So typically another setting is like, how do you drag and drop your skills, especially onto hotbar 3? Like, let's say I want to take Summon Bahamut here and move them in here. It's not going to work. You always have to go to the linked hotbar in case. If I want to move Summon Bahamut right there, I have that ability to do so, and I can just kind of move him around. Since he's listed there twice, we don't actually need him, and that concludes the tutorial. Thanks for being here, everybody. But no, just in all seriousness, the W cross hotbar is just a pointer, and it's not going to let you, actually modify it. If you're like somebody who does not have a mouse and keyboard, but yet you still want to drag and drop these skills into your bar, there's a couple ways you can do it. In the menu, you can actually press your menu key to bring up this hotbar pellet assignment. This should be your X key or your square key by default, but I actually changed up my mappings, and I talked about that in the complete controller guide. I'll try to translate as best I can, but if you hear me reverse those keys, note that it's the menu option here. So if I want to assign this ability, I can then select the slot and select the position, and it's going to automatically move that into it. If I want to actually delete the ability, I can actually press select while my hotbar is held down in left or right trigger, and then I can actually press it again to go ahead and delete it from the bar. If you don't want to use the shortcuts, you can always use your virtual mouse mode, hold down the left bumper and then R3 click, and all of a sudden your right stick is now a mouse instead of a camera, and you can hold down left trigger and you can use that to drag and drop. And when you're done, you can actually just press and hold the L bumper and the R3 click to turn off virtual mouse mode, and then your mouse now has become a camera control again. And again, I don't necessarily want that right there, so that's all good. So that's how you can assign skills to your hotbars and more. Again, my layouts are specifically driven in the comments, so feel free to hit that up and then change it up to your heart's content. Now, to understand the summoner, especially at level 90, this guide is written for you from level 1 to 90. These skills will upgrade, they will change based off of your various traits. If you're ever confused, you'll note that summoners got a lot of traits, a lot of masteries that upgrade skills and actions for you automatically. And the summoner really acts as a true summoner. You have this concept of rotation in terms of bringing out your different summons to do different bigger hits that modify your attacks and more. And honestly, I think it plays really well. So I think it's time that we actually just go ahead and go through all the skills and talk about them. So that way we all have a base understanding, whether you wanted to read these for yourself or this is something that's just giving you information that's going to help make you better at this job. So your level 1 spell is Ruin, and this is all also set by my current stats for the job. So this is set to level 90. These numbers might look a little bit different as you level up through the game. So note if there's a change in your version versus mine, it's most likely due to our stats and our leveling difference in that regards. All right, this is unexpected damage with a potency of 240. Then you have Summon Carbuncle level 2. This is going to summon Carbuncle by your side, and which Carbuncle you can then order to use Radiant Aegis. This is going to have them create a barrier around yourself that absorbs damage totaling 20% of your maximum HP. That's going to last for 30 seconds, and now it's got a charge of 2. Can only be executed if Carbuncle is summoned. You can't do it otherwise. Then you have Physic. This is going to restore target's HP with a 400 cure potency. You have Aether Charge. This is going to grant a stack of Aether Charge, increasing the potency of Ruin, Ruin 2, Ruin 3 by 50, Outburst by 20. This is also going to grant Ruby Arcanium, Topaz Arcanium, and Emerald Arcanium. These cannot be executed in combat, while Carbuncle, can only be executed when Carbuncle is summoned. Here at level 6, you get Ruby, Summon Ruby. This is a Ruby Carbuncle in order to execute Glittering Ruby. This is going to be rushed towards the target and deals fire damage with a potency of 400. It's going to grant 2 stacks of Fire Attunement, and Gem Shine and Precious Brilliance are going to become fire aspected spells for 30 seconds. It can only be executed while under the effect of Ruby Arcanium and Carbuncle is summoned. You'll see Gem Shine here. This is going to channel energies of your active elemental attunement into an attack of your enemy. So obviously fire deals fire to a single target, earth deals earth to a single target, and wind deals wind to a single target. Level 10, you learned Fester. This no longer is based off of your dots, as the dots have been removed from the summoner with one exception. Anyway, it deals an unexpected damage with a potency of 300. It's going to use an Aether Flow gauge stack of 1. You'll also see that you learn Energy Drain at level 10. This is going to deal unexpected damage with a potency of 200. It's also going to give you 2 stacks of Aether Flow in this case and grant further Ruin. And that's also going to last for 60 seconds. And it's going to share a recast timer with Energy Siphon. And that's got a 60-second recast. It's how you fill in your your abilities to use your Fester and your Pain Flare. At a level 12, you're going to learn Resurrection. This is going to allow you to raise a target into a weakened state. Level 15, you learn Summon Topaz. This is going to have you, the Glittering Topaz effect, rushes target and deals earth damage with a potency of 400. It's going to grant 4 stacks of Earth Attunement. This is going to modify Gem Shine and Precious Brilliance to become Earth aspected. And you can only obviously have that with Carby summoned and under the under the influence in that regards. Then you got Summon Emerald in this regards. This is going to deal wind damage with a potency of 400. Grants 4 stacks of wind attunement, obviously impacting Gem Shine and Precious Brilliance. And so then it can only be executed under the effect of Emerald Arcanium while Carbuncle is summoned. Then at level 26, you get Outburst. This is going to deal unexpected damage with a potency of 100 to targets and all enemies nearby it. Level 26, you get Precious Brilliance. This is going to channel the energies of your active elemental attunement. So you get fire, earth, and wind AoE damage. So that's kind of pairing off of the Outburst. So you can see actually kind of how it's somewhat laid out here already on the controller setup. At level 30, you get Ruin 2. This is an upgrade version of Ruin 1 now. It's no longer an instant cast Ruin 2 spell. It's an upgraded Ruin 1 spell. So you get a potency of 270. Now at level 30, you're going to get Summon Ifrit. This is going to have change Ruby into Ifrit, and this is going to rush your target and deal fire damage to all enemies within a 5-yard cone before it with a potency of 600 for the first enemy and a 60% fall off for all remaining enemies in that cone. It's going to grant you 2 stacks of Fire Attunement. This is going to impact Gemstone and Precious Brilliance, and essentially it's going to grant you Ifrit's Favor. And the effect of Ifrit Favor ends upon execution of certain summoner actions, and obviously you need Ruby Arcanium applied, and you need to have your Carbuncle summoned. Same thing applies to Titan regarding the conditions on which you can use it. Earth and Fury effect rushes target and deals a potency of damage to all enemies within 5 yards of a potency of 600 for the first, with a 60% fall off. 4 stacks of Earth Attunement, basically replacing your Emerald Topaz. You also, level 40, you get Pain Flare. This is going to deal unexpected damage with a potency of 150 to target and all enemies nearby it, essentially sharing a recast, or essentially you could still use them both, but between the recast, how fast they are, Pain Flare and Fester, this is your AoE Fester, kind of if you think about how that is set up and functioning. At 45, you get Summon Garuda. Essentially, the same summon conditions apply, but this is going to give you 4 stacks of Wind Attunement. It's also going to give you that AoE damage of 600 with a 60% fall off. It's going to give you that wind aspect, so you can actually then use your wind abilities. Energy Siphon's learned at level 52, shares a recast timer with Energy Drain, but it's going to deal damage with a potency of 100 to all enemies nearby. You have grants you Aether Flow 2, and it also grants you further Ruin. Then you've got Ruin 3. This is going to deal unexpected damage with a potency of 310, replacing Ruin 1 and Ruin 2, and thus having one Ruin spell on your par. Then at 58, you get Dreadworm Trance. This is where you go into your trance. This changes Ruin 3 into Astral Impulse and Outburst to Astral Flare. It's going to grant you Ruby Arcanium, Topaz Arcanium, and Emerald Arcanium, and it can only be executed while in combat while Carbuncle is summoned. At level 60, you get Astral Flow. You get channel the energies of your active trance or elemental favor to perform one of several actions. So when Dreadworm Trance is in effect, action changes to Death Flare. Firebird Trance, action changes to Rekindle. Ifrit's Favor, action changes to Crimson Cyclone. Titan's Favor, action changes to Mountain Buster. Garuda's Favor, action changes to Slipstream. So this is a very flexible ability. At level 62, you get Ruin 4. This deals unexpected damage to target and all enemies nearby with a potency of 430 for the first enemy and 60% less for all remaining enemies, and it can only be executed while under the effect of further Ruin. Then at level 66, you get Searing Light. This orders Carbuncle to execute the ability Searing Light, increasing damage dealt by self and nearby party members by 3%. Then you've got Summon Bahamut. This is where you enter in Dreadworm Trance and the summoner Demi Bahamut to fight at your side. Demi Bahamut will execute Wormwave automatically on the targets attacked by you after summoning increases the enemy immunity in target when Demi Bahamut is summoned. So duration is going to last 15 seconds. This is going to change Ruin 3 to Astral Impulse, Tri-Disaster to Astral Flare. And this also will grant you Ruby Arcanium, Topaz Arcanium, and Emerald Arcanium. Then you've got Enkindle Bahamut. This orders Demon Bahamut to execute Akmorn. This deals unexpected damage to the target and all enemies nearby with a potency of 1300 for the first enemy and 60% less for all remaining. Tri-Disaster essentially is your upgraded Outburst. This deals unexpected damage with a potency of 120 to the target and all enemies nearby it. Then you get Summon Ifrit 2 at level 90. This is the upgrade of the Topaz, and then, obviously Summon Ifrit in this zone. This becomes Summon Ifrit 2. This is going to have Ifrit do 700 potency with a 60% fall off. It's going to grant you still 2 stacks of Fire Attunement. Gem Shine and Precious Brilliance will become Fire Aspected, and you get Ifrit's Favor in regards. Same thing applies to Summon Titan. Same potency, 700 and with a 60% fall off, and Garuda with the 760% fall off. So from a damage perspective, it really is all about how they augment your abilities. Talking about more augmented abilities, Astral Impulse. This deals unexpected damage with a potency of 440 and can only be executed under Dreadworm Trance. Then you've got Astral Flare. This deals unexpected damage with a potency of 180 to the target and all enemies nearby it. So this essentially is an auto upgrade. Death Flare deals unexpected damage with the target and all enemies nearby with a potency of 500 for the first enemy and 60% less for all remaining enemies. Wormwave, this deals unexpected damage with a potency of 150, and this is essentially Bahamut just performing that. Bahamut's Akmorn deals unexpected damage with the target all enemies with that 1300 potency and the 60% fall off. Ruby Right deals fire damage with a potency of 450, and this is essentially how Gem Shine gets augmented into this ability. Same thing with Topaz Right and Emerald Right. So you see that 230 potency, for Emerald, and then you see Topaz at 330, with Ruby being the most hard hitting, but having a recast time where Topaz and Emerald do not. Fountain of Fire. This is going to deal damage to a potency. We got 540. Brand of Purgatory. This deals fire damage to a potency of 420 to a target and all enemies nearby it. Then you have Summon Phoenix. This enters Firebird Trance and summons Demi Phoenix to fight by your side, which executes Everlasting Flight. As it manifests, Demi Phoenix will execute Scarlet Flame automatically on targets attacked by you after summoning, increases the hate in the target when Demi Phoenix is summoned. This is going to change Ruin 3 to Fountain of Fire and Tri-Disaster to Brand of Purgatory. And so that also is going to grant you the Arcaniums, Ruby, Topaz, and Emerald. Everlasting Flight is gradually going to restore own HP and the HP of all nearby party members, and that's going to last for 21 seconds with a cure potency of 100. Rekindle restores own or target party members' HP. This is going to be a cure potency of 400. It's going to grant Rekindle to target, healing over time when HP falls below 75 upon the effect duration expired. Cure potency is 200 and can only be executed while under Firebird Trance. Then you have Scarlet Flame. Deals fire damage with a potency of 150. Will only execute while Demi Phoenix is summoned. You have Enkindle Phoenix. This orders Demi-Phoenix to execute Revelation. This deals fire damage to the target and all enemies nearby with a potency of 1300. And for the first enemy, it's 60% less for all remaining enemies. The action replaces Enkindle Bahamut when Demi-Phoenix is summoned. Revelation deals fire damage to the target of all enemies nearby with a potency of 1300. For the first enemy, 60% fall off from that perspective. Ruby Catastrophe deals fire damage with a potency of 180 to the target and all enemies nearby. Then you have Topaz Catastrophe, deals unexpected damage with 140 to targets and all those nearby it. And then Emerald Catastrophe deals that when aspected with a potency of 100 and all targets nearby it. You've got Crimson Cyclone, 86 level, rushes forward and delivers a fire attack to the target and all enemies nearby with a potency of 430 for the first enemy and 65% less for all remaining enemies. Can only be executed while under the effect of Ifrit's favor. You have Crimson Strike, deals fire damage to the target and all enemies nearby with a potency of 430 for the first enemy and 65% less for all remaining enemies. And this is going to combo off a Crimson Cyclone. Then you have Mountain Buster, deals earth damage to the target and all enemies nearby it with a potency of 150 for the first enemy and 70% less for all remaining enemies and can only be executed under Ifrit's favor. And then Slipstream deals wind potency and target enemies all nearby it with a potency of 430 for the first and 65% less for all remaining enemies. This is also going to create a windstorm centered around the target, dealing damage to any enemies who enter with a potency of 30 for 15 seconds. And that's the one little dot that I'm talking about. And then your pet abilities are Radiant Aegis. This is going to deal that 20% barrier on you of your maximum HP, and Searing Light, which is going to boost everybody's damage by 3%. All right, so now we come to the skill layout setup that I personally am using right now for my summoner. Again, the pinned comment will take you to the macros so you can execute these and have them automatically set up your hotbars accordingly, and then feel free to obviously mix and match and make whatever it is that you want to make from it. Now, we're going to focus here on the left side and the right side with the controller itself, left side being first. Up here, I've got Lucid Dreaming. That's going to restore your own MP. This is a shared role action. Then I've got Astral Flow and Limit Break over here on the left side. In the A position, I got Surecast, Swiftcast, Radiant Aegis, and Summon Carbuncle. And that is how I've got it laid out. Typically, when I look at the A, B, and X, Y buttons, or the X, square, circle, triangle, I tend to put any of the instacast abilities or the abilities I need more often on those, because it's easier to move the controller and use A, B, X, and Y versus move the controller and use up, down, left, and right. So keep that in mind from a priority perspective. It's not going to be 100% rule, because you're just going to have to make some compromises. You don't have 6 buttons in the slot. We only have 4. Anyway, on the left-hand side, I got Astral Flow in the bottom spot, Enkindle Bahamut, Summon Bahamut, and Energy Siphon. Then here I've got Pain Flare, Ruin 4, Precious Brilliance, and Try Disaster, kind of completing my AoE rotation of Pain. If you think about it this way, that's essentially what the left side main trigger is thinking. On the right-hand side, I think of more single target, even though some of these abilities can still do AoE damage. I've got Ruin 3, Gem Shine, Ruin 4, Fester, Energy Drain, Summon Bahamut, Enkindle Bahamut, and Astral Flow. And on the double tap, I've still got Surecast, Radiant Aegis, Swiftcast, Carbuncle, Physic, Lucid Dreaming, and Sleep. You might wonder why I have a little offset with Swiftcast here and here. That's just essentially kind of like how I'm playing around with it right now. There's no right or wrong. As long as you're comfortable and you have a good muscle memory, you'll be just fine. Now, on the expanded hotbar, you can see here that left and right are both the same. This is where I've got my summons all set up so that as I am playing and doing my rotation, I can easily switch into and pull out my summons as necessary. Whether I'm doing AoE or doing single target, I can jump into them by holding and using the expanded hotbar. Now, let me just jump back into it. You can see here also I've got Addle, which is going to lower the target's physical damage dealt by 5% and magic damage dealt by 10%. It's a great way to weaken the targets, especially on big pulls or on bosses where we're going to do big hits. Then I've got Lucid Dreaming again, Resurrection, Swiftcast, and Searing Light. So that has how I can get into those buffs. Regarding the HUD layout, this is kind of just goes right in perfectly. You'll see I've got a couple of floating hotbars. Summon Bahamut, which is going to communicate all that I need to know about bringing out this bad boy and doing that rotation. Same thing for Searing Light because it has a longer cooldown. And this is going to highlight, same thing with here, when these summons are ready. Being that I've got the summons hidden behind here for ease of use, because I'm not, they aren't always up. I want to be able to get to them easily, and I don't want to end up getting lost in a rotation and forget to bring them out. So that's a real important aspect of it. Now, if we go back into the HUD layout, you can see here how I make this happen. This is currently hotbar 4. The reason you want hotbar 3 and 4 and up is that you're not going to have like different numbers listed on the skills. They're just going to act as that floating option. You can go into your hotbar settings via the settings button and actually change any of the layouts and whatever fit your preference, but ends up being in this position because it's easier to see. I've got my trance gauge, I've got my status enfeeblements that are actually looking at those. I've got those split out into 3 elemental groups. So I've got my enhancements and I got my enfeeblements. Enhancements and enfeeblements, this is across the board with all of the different jobs I use. Down here in the corner, I've got my focus gauge, I got my enemy list right here behind action help. I got my target bar, my experience bar, my party list, item help. Minimap is currently turned off. I've been playing the game completely minimap free, and honestly, I really enjoy it. I enjoy it way more without a minimap, and that's something I hope to talk about in a future video. But overall, my HUD layout should be pretty straightforward, and hopefully you're going to get something good out of it, or at least going to get some ideas about some of the settings that you personally can change. Now, while for the macros, I'm not actually using any custom macros for the summoner at this time. Note that, again, you can go and use these to apply the different setup and skills. Now, there might be a skill or two that is not on here that when applied, you might have to manually add because I only get 15 lines, and that's kind of an important takeaway. So if for some reason it doesn't apply all of them, you can always do that, and you can let me know, and I can see if I can get that applied or fixed or make a 4th macro. Either way, if I update these macros, I will make sure I update them on the website as well. So if I end up playing and finding a more efficient, more comfortable setup, I'll be sure to let you guys know on a follow-up video, or especially just trying to keep the macros up to date. So if you apply these and the layouts a little bit differently, be sure to check that Endwalker controller guide playlist, or heck, even check the playlist of future expansions for this game, and that will help get you kind of caught up to speed. I don't know what YouTube's going to ultimately recommend to you when you search, or how they recommend my videos, so I'm going to let you know what the plan is here. One thing I do need to point out though is under my movement, under position 99 for individual, I have this macro called movement. This is going to allow me to basically toggle between sprint and my flying mount roulette. Now currently I've got my mount SNS Finir in here because it's faster, and I haven't locked the mount speed in every zone in Endwalker, so that's why I'm forcing that on, and it's in the 99 spot because if you so choose, I can just right click on the R3 and use that to bring out my mount, or if I jump, I can sprint, and whenever you're in a spot where you can't bring out a mount, it will auto sprint. So it actually makes a very nice and easy transition there. If I go into my controller and system configuration for the controller, and I go under button calibration, I can actually, no, not button, but calibration, I lied. Let me go ahead and hit cancel. Button configuration, that might be better. You can sit here under the R3 and L3. You can actually set it to 98 or 99 exclusive macros firing off. So it doesn't have to be the macro that I showed you, but you can reprogram your controller to basically give you a little bit more functionality. Ultimately, it just depends if you need that functionality or not. Now, finally, for Glamours and Gear, as we always try to wrap up these videos with them. Right now, I am rocking mostly the level 90 set that you get at 560 on the left-hand side. I have not glamoured any of that from its default look. On the right-hand side, I'm currently rocking 580 crafted accessories, and I'm using a 580 crafted a book for the summoner here. Almost said scholar, but we'll be doing scholar soon here on the channel, so hopefully you look forward to that video. Guys, that's going to wrap it up for me. Thank you so much for your time. Hopefully this video was worth it. If it feel like I earned it, hit that subscribe button and like button if you haven't already. Let me know in the comments below what your thoughts are, what you like about the job, most of all, and I look forward to having that conversation with you. Anyway, that's going to be it for me for Ginger Prime. My name's Brian. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you have a fantastic day. I hope to see you in my next video, but until then, take care.
Yeah. It's time to chill out on the couch and read some comments. That's right. You know me when it comes to Destiny. I'm off with a clan, and I'm glad you're feeling better. Oh yeah.